Hey everybody, Coin Week editor Charles Morgan here, and this is our fourth midnight stream. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in or checking this out, later, and we'll see how this goes. I decided this week that I would want to talk about the Stack's Bowers auction a little bit, and then I'll talk about some of the eBay listing techniques that drive me up the wall. I'm sure many of you share in that opinion. And do a little itty bitty amount of show and tell, a couple of the cool things that either I have lying around or that have come to us through some of our partners. So let me start off with and take you into the Stack's Bowers auction and let you know a little bit about how I feel about it and some of the items that are up for sale. I covered this in a two-part, it's going to be a four-part series actually. Two of the parts have been published already, and the first coin I want to talk about in detail will be this one. So this is a 1795 $1 coin with the flowing hair design, and the grade is AU55 according to PCGS. If you're going to the Stack's Bowers website, you'll find it. It's lot number 2082. We'll get a better look at it here. Now, the interesting thing is once you start getting into coins that are this old, there's quite a bit of variability when it comes to eye appeal. Now keep in mind this coin was graded AU55, so it is lightly circulated. But if you look at how just beautiful the fields are, how it's sort of been toned, this dark sort of cobalt aquamarine color, a little bit of I don't know if you call that orange or sienna or whatever you would call those colors. That's a really pleasing combination. And when I was going through auction results for this date to kind of figure out what I wanted to say about this coin, you know, I saw that AU55 1795s ran from about $15,000 to $18,000 on the low end to about $40,000 on the high end. And when it comes to issues like this, I think eye appeal is pretty much everything. You know, the $1794 is one of those coins that is pretty much out of reach for, you know, most collectors. 1795 is not cheap either. You're looking at, like I said, the cost of this coin in this spectacular condition is about the cost of a nice car. So I think, you know, when people are putting a dollar type set together, the 1794 is probably out of the question. The 1795 is the one they go to, and usually they're going to go for one that's in like very fine or extra fine or something like that. And you can find the coin for, you know, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in those grades. But when you get to AU50, 53, 55, 58, and even in the mid state, coin becomes incredibly scarce. And so you do have to pony up a significant amount of money. I love this coin at AU55. I think it's a really fantastic coin, and I wouldn't hesitate to put a bid on it if I was in the market for you know, coins of this caliber, and I was putting together just a phenomenal type set of US dollar coins. Now let's go to the second coin I want to talk about really quick, and that coin is this guy. This is lot 2039. It's a 1916D Mercury dime, graded PCGS MS66 plus, full bands. Now you got to really see this entire coin, so I'll show you the back and the front. Now the great thing about a coin like this is an iconic design. I believe the Mercury dime is going to be one of the Mercury dime, Buffalo nickel, Franklin half dollars. These are going to be coins for the next 100, 150 years that just really take off Of course, a lot of us won't be around in 100 years, but you're going to look at like people going, collectors of the future are going to go back, look at the 20th century, the earlier 20th century. They're going to see how fantastic these coins looked, and they're going to want the best examples. And we're fortunate that so many nice examples of many of these coins have been preserved. It's not like the 19th century with some of the seeded coins and the Liberty $20 gold coins, that a lot of the mint-state coins just aren't available in any quantity, and the ones that are available are typically coins that you have to compromise as a collector in order to build a set. This is an uncompromising 1916D. It is not the finest known. That is an MS-67 full bands that sold probably about 8 years ago for close to $200,000. Now that coin had fiery red toning. You can make a case that this coin is nearly as nice. I like the toning on the obverse and the reverse. Very pleasing coin. It is clearly full split bands, as you can see with the picture. So why would a coin like this sell? I think you're looking at it, and also I forgot to mention this is a CAC coin. I think you're looking at anywhere between $90,000 and $95,000 for this would be probably the correct price in the market today. And you know, clearly if you're playing ball at this price level, you should expect your coins to be the very best. And this is certainly a coin I would put in that category without a doubt, without hesitation. What a fantastic Mercury dime. All right, let's go down a little bit. I know I'm talking about a ton of super expensive coins here, but this is a rarity night sale where most of these lots are being pulled from. In fact, actually, the funny thing is the real showcase of Stack's Bowers offering in Baltimore isn't going to be coin related at all. It's going to be the paper money. Will be the third installment of the Joel R. Anderson collection. There's going to be quite a few six-figure notes in that, and I will get to those next week on Coin Week. But here you have a 1901 $1 coin in Mint State 62. Now this is the VAM3, the DDR, the very famous DDR, and you know, most people will not own a 1901 Morgan dollar in mint state, much less the DDR. But let's take a look at this coin for a minute. Now, most 1981s that you see that do come in mint state, or even ones in AU, are pretty lackluster in eye appeal. They don't have a lot of luster, and that's a lackluster, I mean that literally. They don't usually have a lot of luster, and this one has plenty of it. You see that there are scuffs and scratches on it that are pretty much what you would expect for a 62. Now, the DDRs are actually very, very uncommon, and you will find that there are just not that many of them at all in mint state. And one of the reasons why they're so coveted is if you look at this, you can see that the die was rotated slightly, probably like at 12 o'clock. And you see an impression of the eagle underneath the main impression. So if you go underneath the eagle's wings at the bottom, you see below the tail feathers, below the arrows. And if you really zoomed in close, you can see some doubling in Goblet truss as well. But this is a naked eye visible variety, an error that was not corrected before these coins are struck with these dies. And again, the top pop coin for this variety is in the 62 plus. And so you're talking about a coin that is quite rare. This is probably either the second or possibly the third finest of the shifted eagle variety. And the 62 plus sold about 5 years ago for $41,000. So here's just a slight step below that in grade. We're talking about the difference between a plus and not having a plus. And it's quite possible this coin is going to go for well over $30,000, probably deservedly so. Okay, let's see what else do we have here. Now, the next coin, oh, I'm sorry about that. There's a typographical error. It's actually a 1944 cent, not a 1911. Okay, so this is lot 2039, Sachs Bauer sale, again for 1944. And something immediately obvious about this coin should stand out. Of course, the zinc-coated steel cents that we all know were struck for circulation in 1943. Now, there are some bronze 1943 cents that are incredibly rare, and the finest one sold for over $1 million. And so this is that was one of the great rarities in American 20th century numismatics. But this coin, 1944, zinc cent, nearly as rare, actually. There's probably only a couple dozen of these known. Most of them are circulated or in some way impaired. This coin, of course, AU details, it has been clean. And when you look at a coin like this, and you try to establish what a fair price would be, it's hard to say because you are dealing with an impaired coin. Now, we were looking at some of the recent auction results, and some of the AU coins that were not impaired did not have any appeal whatsoever. They were going for anywhere between $25,000 and $35,000. So this is a coin that probably would sell for between 18 to 20, maybe a little bit more. And I think even at that level, even though it's impaired, I think a coin like this is worth every penny because, yeah, you want a quality coin, you want a coin that hasn't been cleaned, but you can't really say that too much of this coin's numismatic value has been lost due to that impairment, because where are you going to find another one of these? There aren't that many. So if most of them are damaged, that's already baked into the cake. So this is just a fantastic coin. It would be a centerpiece of any Lincoln cent collection. And honestly, at $18,000 to $20,000 or whatever the final bid ends up being, it's far more affordable to have this 1944 mint error than the bronze 1943 one. Now we're going to get to one of my favorite coins in the sale as far as eye appeal. This is a 1916S Buffalo nickel, an NGC MS67 Plus. And let you see the back and front of this coin. I had to use a white background here because it's an NGC holder, and those tabs are pretty pretty unsightly when you crop them out, and I like that white background better for this coin. Now, this coin used to be in an MS67 NGC holder when it was sold in 2012 in the Teton Ranch collection, and it's upgraded to an MS67 Plus. In all fairness, NGC adopted the Plus after the coin was originally graded, and you really cannot argue that this is not a quality MS67. So the MS67 Plus for eye appeal certainly warranted. I don't consider this great inflation at all. This is a coin that sold for about 15 grand, as I said before, and I think that the market for high-end Buffalo nickels has actually improved dramatically since 2012. Again, I'm going back to my earlier statement, Franklin half dollars, which are pretty hot right now, Mercury dimes, which I think are the tailing indicator of the 3 series, and Buffalo nickels are going to be 3 series that are going to be the linchpins of 20th century numismatics for a wide swath of the market. I think coins like the St. Gallen's Double Eagle for those rare dates are way too expensive for as many collectors to be interested in. And the Barber type, they're going to be pretty much a series that's going to be connected to the 19th century. I think the Lincoln cent series has become overburdened by the Memorial cent period and now the Shield cent period. I think that's going to lose some popularity. It already is one of those series that has different tiers of collecting. Some people like to collect from 1909 to about 1930. Some people like the entire wheat cent period. And some people really are hardcore about that series and we'll collect the entire thing. And there is merit to that. But I think when you get back to the heart of it, Buffalo Nickel, short series. Mercury Dime, relatively short series. Franklin Half Dollar, short series. So I think these combine beautiful aesthetics and a period of production which isn't all-encompassing of an entire century. So I think for that reason, this is going to be a series that continues to appreciate in value. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a coin like this bring well over $30,000, just on the eye appeal and the scarcity of the grade alone. So there are some of my thoughts. You know, I actually previewed about 10 coins. Not all of them were super expensive. I previewed a 78D of Kennedy Half Dollar that was toned in MS64, and also a set of 1984 to 2008 set of gold-proof modern commemoratives that were in a capital holder. So you should check that out. Also, these Stack's Bowers auctions and heritage auctions, any of the major auctions you see at a coin show, they are going to be an opportunity for you to see very valuable, very exotic, and rare coins. They have lot viewings, and as long as you're courteous and considerate of people's time, you can, even as a collector who maybe cannot afford these things, afford yourself the opportunity to at least see them in person and get to know a little bit more about coins. I think the more you see nice coins and the more you see coins that are graded and look at them and refer to the catalog, the better you get as a collector when it comes to buying coins for yourself. So maybe you're not going to buy a $50,000 or $100,000 Morgan dollar, but you can see the grade, you can see how they come, you can kind of learn about it, and then the coins that you can afford in your range, you have a much better insight into what the market pricing and grading is for those coins. Also, I think it's a great opportunity to see things you've never seen before. One of the great elements of numismatics is that you get to develop as a collector. You know, when I first started collecting coins, I wasn't collecting exotic or esoteric coins. It was actually, or metals or tokens or anything like that. I was actually very intimidated by that. I was intimidated about buying something that didn't have a denomination on it because I was like, well, what is it worth? You know, you can spend $100 on a quarter and still have an idea that it's still a quarter, and that when you go to a coin shop, the word coin is there and people will recognize the quarter as having some value, and maybe your purchase price isn't all for nothing if you decide you don't like it anymore or want to sell it or trade it. When it comes to a metal or a token, however, you really have to kind of take a leap of faith as far as value is concerned, because if they're not in standard references or the dealer that you frequent isn't familiar with that material, you probably don't feel like you're comfortable paying a significant amount of money for it. However, the great thing about these auctions is that Stack's Bowers and others, they relish the opportunity to sell esoteric items, numismatic Americana, if you will. And so you get to see this material, you get to see it lovingly curated, you get to see great descriptions about it, you get to learn about these things. And if you pay attention to the auction results, you get a sense of what the value is. Not all of these things come in great mint state, 70, 69, 68, 65 condition. A lot of these things are things that were not preserved in their original form. So as you find these things, so have other people, and hopefully the beauty of our hobby is that we preserve these items by trading them amongst each other, sometimes, hopefully, for a profit. Now, speaking of profits, the last thing I have prepared for you guys, and I hope this is going to be a little bit of fun, as I've gone through eBay and some of the things that really make my skin crawl when I look at auction or coin listings and things like that. And I wanted to go over them with you and to see if we can have a little bit of fun. Now, obviously, folks, behind every one of these listings is a seller who's a person who's worthy of some degree of our respect, and I hope that if one of your listings was pulled here, I mean this in good humor, and maybe it's something you could learn from, because my opinion about how I don't like these listings is probably shared by a lot of people, and I think you'd probably have better success if you developed a different technique. But without further ado, let's have a little bit of fun and go over some of these. So the first one of these listings that drives me nuts, and you see this quite a bit. So I'm just gonna wait for a second, let you look at this, and kind of mull it over. Now I added that second photo, that second close up of the obverse of the 1920 Mercury dime, but think about what this is offering you: an unsearched wheat penny roll with 1920 Mercury dime and Indian head ends. Now, how do you know? How do you possibly know that there's wheat pennies inside this roll if you haven't searched it? And on each end of that roll is a dime and an Indian cent. Now, one way you might know that is if you made it yourself, which is possible. But what people read when they read into that is that, oh, well, this is just some old coin roll that no one's ever searched through, and it's got some valuable coins in it. So let me bid a tremendous amount of money for it. Now this roll has a bid of $20.50, which probably exceeds the value of all the coins inside that roll, because that junk silver dime is only worth melt and a little bit less. That Indian cent looks like it's been cleaned at some point. So there's really nothing in this roll that would entice me to want to bid on it. Unfortunately, for the unlucky winner of this auction, you're going to get a roll and you're going to be sad to discover that there were no 1909 SVDBs or 1914Ds. And a lot of times you'll see listings like this and they'll say, oh, this comes from a grand estate of tens of thousands of rolls, and none of them have been searched, and you can find some rare coins in it. But, you know, this is just a method. I call it the sort of the Miss Haversham method, you know, because if somebody is sophisticated enough to hoard hundreds of thousands of coins, they probably have pulled out the 1909 SVDBs and the 1922 no mint marks and all that stuff, and they put those aside and not put them in big hordes of junk. So when you get these coins and these coin rolls, it's like playing a scratch lottery ticket game that somebody's already scratched it and didn't win and just left them in the stack. So that's what I think about when I look at these listings, and you know, nothing I say is going to make them go away, but I wanted to point that out. Here's one. Now I want you to read this listing. This coin is offered for sale. It's as far as I'm concerned, accurately graded coin. It is a good date. And you know, I have nothing against that, but the phrase "great obverse toning" is something that really catches my eye, and I was looking for that phrase, the great toning, when I pulled this. Again, I'm not going to pick on this coin. I haven't seen it in hand, but I can tell you one thing: I don't know anywhere in the market or any professional dealer or collector that would call that toning pattern, which is quite typical, great toning. Great toning usually adds to the eye appeal of the coin. This is the kind of toning that, you know, if you're I don't know if you would call it a strict adherent to originality, of course you would leave it there. But many dealers would actually dip this out so it could return the coin in somewhat to a brilliant form where it would make more money. But nevertheless, here you have an 1879 CC, PCGS MS64. Again, I assume accurately graded, but I would not list a coin with toning like this and call it great obverse toning with an exclamation mark. I would just call it toned. And finally, another Morgan Dollar listing, and I'll leave this one up here for a second so we can look at it. Now, forget the mixed in with the actual PCGS. I think there's one PCGS holder and 3 NGC holders, but forget the basement slabs, okay? Of course, those basement slabs are kind of hard to resist. They are basically saying these coins are MS67. Some of these slabs, which is not true. But the thing that drives me nuts is when I see listings that say no reserve, yet you have a reserve of $16,000 with no bids, right? You are clearly putting these coins up at a reserve. There is a price that you would not accept for these coins. You would not accept 99 cents. You would not accept $5. You would not accept $10. You would not accept $30 a coin. You would only accept $16,000 starting bids and up. So again, this is something that always drives me nuts. You see it all the time. It's Silver Eagles offered for $50, no reserve. It could be as simple as that, or it could be, like I said, one of these big auctions for a lot of coins where you want 5 figures and then you're claiming there's no reserve. Now, I understand if you're going to a major auction, like a live auction, and they'll say this is a no reserve auction, and they reserve the right to offer the coins at a price which they think is wholesale for the coins. Now, it's not technically no reserve as far as I'm concerned, but I can understand not wanting to start the bid at a live auction at 99 cents and get 400 bids before you get up to that wholesale price point. But an internet auction like eBay is completely different. You could get 150 bids on a lot like this, and it wouldn't waste anybody's time because the auction ends when the auction ends. So please do me a favor and never bid on anything like this that says no reserve when there's clearly reserve. Let these people learn their lesson, and hopefully in the future they'll either list it as is, $16,000 or whatever dollars, and then wait for someone to bid on it, or they won't, and they won't put that no reserve in there, or they'll actually list it for 99 cents and see what happens. And I actually think a collector like this who's trying to sell an 1878 to 1921 set, including all the CCs, and I don't know if this includes the 1893S or whatever, but I would assume this collector would get probably a fair market price for what his collection is worth if he actually let eBay do its thing. There's quite a number of bidders, and it's not that common where something falls so far through the cracks that you don't get essentially a fair hearing for the coins that you're offering for sale. That's just my opinion. You know, you may have your own eBay strategies that drive you nuts. I mean, I was looking through and I saw some that had like great toning, except the toning, the photographs were so bad I couldn't even see what the toning was. And I would have picked one of those, but I had a hunch though that that coin probably did have great toning. It's just the photograph wasn't that good, because capturing toning on coins is actually quite hard. So I think that, you know, I give people a little bit of credit for trying, even though, you know, most of us fail at coin imaging. And also I saw some other things in there that like always drive me nuts, you know, the basement slabbers, which eBay's done a great job in recent years of getting rid of. It used to be, there was one seller on eBay, and I don't remember their name, but they used to sell these basement slabs, and I think they probably sold 50,000 of them, you know, and they proliferated everywhere. And you still see these things that they're like horrible. Even at coin shows and stuff like that, you see kids, like, you know, the coins they give away to kids being these things. I had a friend of mine who used to buy these like bargain slabs and try to flip them himself, and he showed me them, and the coins were literally rotting inside the holders, which said that the coins were like in proof 70 and MS70, even though they were like covered with like mildew or something. So I'm glad eBay's cut down on that, but I do think, you know, each of us who are trying to sell coins, we owe it to ourselves and to the coins to try to represent them as best as we can. And sometimes that means that we're going to have to be a little bit more patient with how we put things online. Maybe make sure those photographs are accurately representing the coins. If you're not good at photography and you get your coins professionally graded, you know, both things you see in PCGS offer imaging services, and I would just assume, you know, to use those than to try my own hand at it, even though I've got a good camera. And actually, I've dabbled in coin photography, but it just seems to me that it's cheaper in the long run to not spend your own time to mess around with it and just use professionally imaged photos that you get taken when you get the coins graded. Without any further ado, though, I'm going to go and see what kind of questions you guys have. I'm sorry I haven't been looking at your questions as I'm talking. Oh, yeah, I wanted to point out, I got some, last time, it was 2 weeks ago, I got some emails from some of the viewers who wanted to take me up on my idea of doing a podcast with regular collectors. I haven't ignored those emails. I've been a little bit tied up trying to get a few things done. So hopefully in the next couple days, maybe a few, you may hear from me, because I definitely am interested in doing that. This week on the podcast, actually, I didn't have an interview. I actually talked about some coin submission success strategies that I developed for myself. I hope you check that out. It's also on our YouTube channel on CoinWeek, and you can download it on the iTunes store. So in the coming weeks, I think I will try to venture and get a few collectors on and see how that goes. I think coin dealers, they also listen to our podcast, and I think they have a lot to learn by talking to you guys. One of the things that I feel most adamant about is that the main demographic of the coin collecting market is going to be Generation X collectors. Generation X began long before I was born. I was born in the mid-'70s, and according to most of the sources I've read, Generation X begins around 1965. So you're looking at probably 15, 20 years of collectors that the industry is going to rely on for its viability in the next few years, starting the next few years and for the next few decades. And I think dealers need to develop a new relationship with these collectors. I think for starters, I think we think about coins differently. I think we think about marketing and the market differently. We think about technology certainly differently. And I think that these dealers need to come to grips with the fact that we are quite literally different people. And for most of the time that I've been in the hobby as a child, through a teenager, a young adult, or whatever, I was never part of that mainstream group of people where dealers would look at me and say, "Oh, well, this person is very important for my financial well-being." Now that's changing now. A lot of people in our generation are buying big coins, 4-figure coins, 5-figure coins. Some people are putting $1 million coin collections together. Now that's not all of us, but the fact of the matter is, even if you don't buy huge coins like that, there are enough people who buy $100 coins and $200 coins and $500 coins to drive the marketplace. And most of the coin prices that you see that go up on the upper end don't necessarily impact the lower end of the market. And that's because they're not reaching people in Generation X like us and getting this involved in coins and making that a cornerstone of how the industry operates. And I hope to see that kind of thing change as we go into the next few years, because quite honestly, it's going to have to change. Now, I think the coin market's not necessarily in a bad place. I haven't thought that at all. I've never lost my faith in coins as far as the potential for the industry to grow, for innovation to come to change the way we collect coins. I think we're in the middle of a transition period as far as what we want out of the hobby as a community, but there's a lot of talent that's coming up. There are Generation X dealers that are coming on board. Some of the smartest people I know are under 45 years old who are in the coin industry. Some big names, like people like David McCarthy or James Ricks at Atlas Numismatics. You go on and on. There's quite a few people who are coming into their own, who are quite talented, who will help this industry grow. So, but we need to respect and to establish our relationship with collectors to make sure that we represent their interests and their needs when a lot of the decisions are made about what the future of the hobby is. I've been asked by the ANA in January to be on a symposium at the Fun Show to go over some ideas I have about the future of the hobby. In this last August at the ANA, I sat on a symposium for the Numismatic Literary Guild to talk about blogging. And I was probably the curmudgeon of the group, even though I wasn't the oldest person or anything. But I basically said, blogging's dead. We don't need more blogs. We need actually great information in a centralized place so people can come to it and feel like they're getting accurate information that helps them engage with the hobby. I think the idea that we need 150 people writing 400-word articles is preposterous, and has always been that way. In fact, if you go back the last couple hundred years of the hobby, the coin hobby has only ever supported a couple of publications at any given time. And without these publications, we would not have been able to popularize the things that have been popularized, and certain elements of our hobby would have been lost. So I don't think I have all the answers. I just speak from my heart and try to give people insights from what I see. I am flattered by the fact that, like, when I go to coin shows now, I am stopped pretty much on a regular basis by people who have read Coin Week or seen some of our videos or listened to our podcasts. Are very supportive of what we do. We consider ourselves a collector-oriented publication, and I certainly have focused on that in all the articles that we've put up. We've curated quite a bit of content in the last few years. And I'm not trying to talk down to you guys. I want you guys to know exactly what's going on. We reveal far more about what happens in the coin industry than you'll really find anywhere else. Some of our writing really has an edge that you won't see because we're trying to cut through a little bit of the marketing to give you the facts. So when you see a coin preview and we say, oh, this used to be in this holder, most people won't tell you that. Most dealers won't tell you that. We're just trying to give you the facts. And not that that means that the coin's bad or that it's anything dishonest about what's going on. It's just that if you're going to spend the money and buy that coin, I want you to be open-eyed about what you're getting yourself into. The same thing, we were really down on the 1995 W Silver Eagle that sold for a record price because I thought that that was a burial coin. The person who bought that coin has lost a tremendous amount of money on paper because quite a few more 95 Ws and 70 were made. It went from a pop 8 to probably over 100 now, and you'd be lucky to get $35,000 for a coin this person paid $80-some thousand for. So this is the kind of stuff that, we see it, we write about it, we tell you exactly how we feel about it. Sometimes we get in trouble for it. People don't always like it. I've been criticized by people in the industry for saying some of the things we've said, but we've held some people's feet to the fire too about things that we didn't think were cool. So that's what we do, man. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are, hanging out with us and reading what we have to say and not criticizing my hair too much. So, all right. So let me go through some of your comments to see if I have anything. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Let's see. Not to nitpick, but this would be episode 3. I think I did 3. I think this is the 4th one. But if it's 3rd, then, I've just lost my mind. Let's see. Excellent video quality. I hope your internet issues are fixed. I hope they were. Keith, yeah, I don't know why people think unsearched roles are unsearched. How do you know what's in them if you haven't searched for them? There are unsearched roles though sometimes, Kennedy half dollars and things like that. At $50 rolls at banks, sometimes people haven't searched through them in many years, and there could have some silver coins in there. You're not going to get rich doing that, and you'd need a good dump bank to get rid of these coins. But there are, I suppose, some instances where things aren't searched. But nobody's going to be able to make a living selling unsearched rolls, if you know what I mean. I mean, a 1 or 2 off thing maybe, but what I'm looking for is the unsearched rolls of gold coins, because that definitely I wouldn't open. I would just sell them as is for whatever rock bottom price I could get for them. Let's see. What do we got? Is there a video about Coin Week? Not really. The thing about it is it's not very interesting to see people write all the time. If I had a video camera on all the time while I was working, it would just be me typing and me being mad that I can't type faster, or I mean, not I type plenty fast, but that I can't write these articles faster and do everything I want to do, and that would be very entertaining. Now we do quite a bit of videos at coin shows. And we've let the curtain in, peeled the curtain back a little bit from time to time. If you look at videos like the one we did when we went to the Austrian Mint, or when I went with Michael Chu to Berlin to kind of show how his panda metal situation went down when he was making a coin for the handover of pandas to the Berlin Zoo. You kind of got a hint of what it's like to be behind the scenes with us. I've got many ideas for videos like this, of course. It's just a matter of having the time to execute them and to do them right, and find that time was well spent, that people really enjoyed seeing it. But the one thing I will tell you about, the coin industry, once you get to a certain level, is really sort of a lifestyle. Many of the dealers that you'll see at like a major coin show are on the road almost half of the year. They trade with each other a lot. They source material. You'll find that a lot of many coin dealers who travel on the national circuit are specialized in certain areas. You know, maybe one dealer may specialize in bullion, another one may specialize in type gold. Some specialize in, you know, quarters or seated type or bust or whatever, or early copper. And they'll trade amongst themselves as they're sourcing materials so that the different specialists will have an avenue to buy the coins that they sell in. They may pay more money for these coins because they have clients that they've developed over the years. But one of the things you have to understand is when the show is over and it's the evening time, a lot of these dealers, they'll go out and they'll drink beers together and they'll have dinner together and they'll talk and they'll plan things they want to do or ruminate about great things that could come to the hobby. You know, I always enjoy being around these people because you learn so much. I think part of the history of the hobby is the people, whether it's a collector or the dealers. I think that, you know, if you think about a coin dealer, like an honest, you know, solid the earth kind of coin dealer who knows his coins, develops a good client list, tries to put great collections together. I mean, this person affects so many people in the hobby for generations that people look back and they remember fondly some of these people. You go to like a coin dealer like David Akers, you know, is like one of the leading experts of gold. I mean, even the next generation of gold dealer looks up to this gentleman, and it just speaks well, I think, of like part of the human element of the hobby that often gets lost when we talk about coins and grades and slabs and things like that, is that there are people behind these things. And also when it comes to collectors, I mean, collectors are absolutely instrumental to the entire experience. I mean, people still remember people like John J. Pittman and Louis Eliasberg, and they'll remember Brent Pogue for generations. They're going to remember people, you know, these major collectors. But, you know, it's not just major collectors that drive the hobby. It's basically all of us. So as long as I think I've been in the hobby, once I gained that insight that, you know, we're all just sort of part of this tapestry, I think my understanding of everything just sort of developed from there. And that's one of the reasons, like, when you see me at a coin show, like, no matter what you collect, no matter what level you are, no matter how experienced or old or younger you are, I'll ask you if you got anything cool, and I'll look at it, and I really will take an interest in it. And if I know something cool about it, I'll let you know. And you know, so to me, it's just like, this is like what makes it cool, you know? I just think that we all sort of share this space, and these coins and metals and paper money, they're just sort of totems that sort of tie us together. Like, because, you know, these are interesting things, right? But we're all interesting people too, so. Let's see. Are you putting together any sets right now? I don't know. I've been trying to put together some FAO coins and metals and things like that, but every time I turn around, something comes up that I haven't seen, and I have no idea of how to process it. You know, I put a couple things together here that I was going to show you, like a little bit of show and tell, you know, before I get going. But, you know, as far as the things I'm building, I got this in the mail today from Hungary. Okay, and this is an FAO medal that for Alvin Myrdal, that I assume, according to the eBay listing, says it was plated in gold. Now, I don't even know what to make of this thing. I mean, it's the right size and everything for an FAO medal. I don't think it's actually gold, because I don't believe they made gold medals this big, and I don't think they'd end up in some random eBay seller out of Hungary. I don't think it's counterfeit. I just don't know what it is, and I've been collecting these things for years. It's possible that somebody just took a bronze medal and gold plated it, but it's just really unusual. And so I sit here, and as somebody who likes to put things in order and build catalogs, and someone who even like has over the course of the last few years even contemplated the idea of writing a reference about this, to constantly find things you don't even know what they are, and there's nothing I can go to. The FAO themselves have destroyed most of their records when it comes to these metals, and a lot of the people involved in these programs are no longer with us. I just sit here and I'm like, I don't know. So I'll keep buying these until I lose patience. But you know, I right now I have a few hundred of these medals, and I quite literally I'm no closer to completing any understanding of them. That was when I started. There used to be a great website I would go to online. It's just an amateur site, some person who's really into FAO coins put together, where he had many of the metals listed, and I would check, like when eBay or some auction site would have these things, I would check them to see if he had them, and then I would sort of gauge my collection based on how complete it was, based on what I saw there, thinking at the time that this person had a fairly complete understanding of the series. As that site's been taken offline now, you have to go to the Wayback Machine to find it, and I've saved some of these screenshots. But like, I have far more medals than this person ever did, and I'm no closer to figuring it out. In fact, I kind of feel lost because that person's gone and no longer interested, and I can't reach out to them. Their email doesn't work. Another thing that I had thought of doing, and this is a like sort of a 3 medallion set. I don't know if you can see this. This is in Japanese for Expo 70. I remember before I became the editor of Coin Week, I used to write basically a column every couple weeks for Coin Week, and these columns would take me quite a long time to write. I mean, we would, Hubert Walker and I would spend probably 30 or 40 hours writing these columns, and these things, cool. And I remember getting the 1970 Japanese mint set, which you can get cheap. They were marketed in the United States. They usually come in these little PVC packages, which means most of the coins are totally destroyed. But if you get one that hasn't completely broken down, you can get decent coins. And they have a 1,000 yen coin, you know, nickel clad type of coin, and it was for Expo 70. And so that got me to thinking, it's like, well, let me learn a little bit about this exposition. And this thing has, the Expo 70 not only has some of the coolest like posters and art design and architecture of any of these like international expositions I've ever seen, but there is such a rich trove of numismatic objects like medals, medallions, tokens, all sorts of stuff, and all sorts of metals. I mean, it was almost like, you know, like the so-called dollar series, if you collect that, which is a good segue here to plug Jeff Shevlin and Bill Hyder's so-called dollar pocket price guide. But the so-called dollar series, like basically when that started, it started with you know, the World's Columbian Exposition, and there had to be like 50 or 60 different designs that they had made, and all sorts of metals. I mean, it was just like a smorgasbord of these tokens and privately issued tokens and metals to celebrate that World's Fair. Well, the Expo 70 is pretty much the same thing, but there might actually be more. And again, it's like there's a language thing here because like it's in Japanese, and I'm not possibly going to get everything here in the United States because, like, you know, we're not going to have access to everything. But it was so cool, I decided I was going to write an article about it and really dig into it. And I started buying quite a bit of this stuff because, again, you know, a lot of people are writing these articles kind of, you know, you're kind of owning these things, so it's not a profitable endeavor, you know, as a collector who's writing. So I bought quite a bit of it, and then it was just such a mammoth thing that like I got into other things, writing about other topics, and then I got hired to do Coin Week full time. And at that point, you know, I was like, I didn't have the time to spend another 30 or 40 hours looking into something I was just learning about. So, but I still have a lot of these things, and like I said, I think they're cool and interesting. You know, I love learning about, you know, Asian cultures, you know, I tried to take Japanese for a year in college, and it didn't work out too well for me because it was quite challenging and I was quite busy. I did learn Russian though, so I guess I'm not that bad at languages. Another thing I want to show you, this was sent to me by a collector, and they wanted to share with me what natural copper looks like. And I believe it's copper. Copper looks like it's been treated or cleaned in some way, but you can see it's just crystallized right there. All these like little, I don't know if that's the word for it, but I'm not really a mineral guy, but you see like is a really kind of a cool thing here. Very malleable metal. You know, it's got a very high thermal and electrical conductivity, and you know, seeing how it comes from the ground is very interesting. And they told me that this was extracted from Michigan. So there you go. Cool. And I guess the last thing, I mean, none of these things are related to one another, but here's something cool that I got from the Perth Mint. They just sort of gave it to me, and I probably give it away. Scott Purvis, who does is a webmaster at Coin Week, he does most of the giveaways, has just sort of a trove of coins he's always buying to give away, and I have probably just as many here that we've picked up over the years, but we just haven't managed to list them, so they're just sitting and sitting and sitting. But here's one. This was, according to the Perth Mint, the first, I don't know if I can show you this, the first legal tender bar for Australia, and it was struck to honor the new year. There, you see the dragon there. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was very nice of them. I sat with them for a presentation on their coins, which I think we put on YouTube or Facebook last year. But it was very nice of them. They didn't need to do this and give us this. But yeah, 1 ounce, 999 silver, 2008 date on it. So anyway, folks, that kind of wraps up my. Okay, hold on. I'll answer some questions and I get going. Let's see. All right. Should TPG labels and online verification info state that a coin has been conserved, and how by the grading companies? This is from Randy Genron. Okay, it's an interesting question. One thing I think you got to keep in mind is that many coins have been conserved over the years, whether they've been conserved by a grading service or by a collector or by a coin dealer before they get submitted to a grading service. I think it's impossible to be able to do the forensic science necessary to determine what has been done to a coin with the available technology and the standards that the industry has. Now, I say that feeling full well that it would be great to see some changes come to our grading regimen. And executives at PCGS or NGC catch wind of what I'm saying, I hope they take this as a heartfelt suggestion. I think that we should probably develop a hybrid system that uses world-class coin graders that are human beings who know the market, who know the coins, how they come, that have that pattern recognition skill that's been developed after years of looking at coins, right? I still think that that's like a necessary ingredient. But I think another ingredient needs to be added, and I think that is advanced computer imaging, 2D, 3D scans of coins that includes a chemical test. And I think that what this should do is to create a sophisticated image of the coin that shows all the hits everywhere that's like imperfect, and also scans the coin surface for the presence of chemicals. And I think that the grader should get this information when they make their determination of what the grade is. It should take into account like the number of hits and everything. I mean, a grading service has 30 years of experience or more, of looking at coins and knowing, okay, MS65 should have this amount of surface preservation free of hits. Hits in this parts of the coin are more damaging than hits here. So I think you can basically take sophisticated imaging software, build a relational database that kind of takes into account this, and what grading really is, what the standards are per grade. And I think that if you use a hybrid approach, I think you get more consistency, but also on the back end, think about it this way. Okay, so I have a coin that's been graded by a computer and a human being, and then when I go look up the cert number, I get that heat map that I was talking about so I can see all the hits. And then the computer and the human being can interact to have additional information like, this coin's 92% struck up. This coin has 4% of its surface area is, affected by scratches or hits. right? This coin has tremendous eye appeal for the type and the grade. There's all sorts of things you can do to build more information so that the grade is shorthand as it is today, but the collector has more of a chance to go and look the coin up and see a more thorough vetting of it. And I think that, it's more costly to do this. It's certainly going to change, sort of the way businesses have to operate. And that might be where the reluctance is. But I think in the long run, certain coins demand more attention. And I think that it's easier to sell coins when you're not relying on shorthand and then just sort of a freewheeling approach to description. But when you have like things that resemble more statistical in nature, like I said, this coin top 5% for the grade according to the computer scan, and all sorts of things you could do with sophisticated imaging. You can use CAD software to design, develop almost anything. So I find it hard to imagine that we haven't developed computing technology, imaging technology that can't blend two-dimensional and three-dimensional analysis of a coin. And again, I don't think the human being goes away. I think the human being uses the tool and comes up with a way of describing a coin that is more specific and hopefully more consistent. So that's just what I suggest, and I hope that we see that at some point. People always talk about reinventing the wheel, and maybe we should go to a 100-point grading scale and get rid of everything we have. And that doesn't really fix the problem. The problem is that A grade is basically all it is a compromise, because 65, what does it really mean? Does it mean that it's absolutely fabulous except for one problem? Is it okay because it's not that great of a coin, but it doesn't really have that many problems either? I mean, what does it really mean? And I think until we get to the point where like people look at it and say, yeah, I get it. I get exactly what that is. Then you kind of need to develop a system to sort of give people some sense of comfort. Again, like the great thing about the conditioned census stuff that people put together is if you go to any series where there's experts doing conditioned census, they don't agree all the time. In fact, they could not agree at all. But nobody would say, hey, Grellman, he doesn't know anything about coins because Noyes doesn't agree with him. So I just think you get to the point where, like, the more information you give people, the better tools that they have to make decisions. And I think, honestly, people just want to feel comfortable when they buy coins. And so, I think the industry will come to terms with that. I mean, the technology isn't going to go away. It's actually going to get better and better as we go forward. So I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. As far as should they put that they've been conserved on the holders, again, if you're doing a scan with some sort of chemical analysis, you could say, the coin exhibits, faint traces of MS70 or whatever the substance would have been. But I think in the long run, honestly, the coin is what it is today, and to sit there and like discriminate against every single coin because it's been messed with. I only want coins that haven't been messed with. I mean, you're going to be kind of disappointed in the long run because a lot of coins have been messed with. I mean, early copper coins have been like brushed and lacquered and cleaned in order to not corrode and turn black, and silver coins have been dipped and all sorts of stuff has been done to these things. The best we can do is to try to preserve as many coins as we can for as long as we can preserve them. Like with highly reactive metals, I mean, they're all going to like erode at some point. So the longer we can keep them going, the more we can preserve the past through numismatics. Let's see. If coins have to say they've been conserved, but like I said, you listen to what I'm saying about how coins are processed. I mean, conserved, processed, clean, doctored, dipped. I mean, it's really like a very complex web there when it comes to like what's going on with coins. And again, like we all in one way or another have affected the coin surface, by holding it, touching it, wiping it, putting it putting in a holder, trying to dip it out. Some people know how to do this. Some people, I mean, I was a kid. I used to take a pencil eraser to the copper and ruin them and like not realize it, like what I was doing. You know, I've seen, you know. So I think we've all are guilty of ruining coins at one point or another. Let's see. Looking forward to hearing from some typical collectors, David Schwager. Usually not even their families know their stories. David Schwager, not a typical collector. He's a normal guy, though. I know him in person. He's very engaged, very outgoing about preserving sample slabs and understanding of them. I thought he was doing important work years ago when I met him. I think what the grading services do, or like they said, like the dealers do, is an important part of numismatic history. In fact, the grading services changed numismatic history. They were very radical and revolutionary. And David has preserved a very big chunk of our understanding of the evolution of the slabs, the marketing of graded coins. And I think you wouldn't see you wouldn't see quite as bit of much interest in this area of the hobby if it weren't for people like David. So I do want to thank him for watching and for participating and for being my friend. So the Enabler, what is your opinion on the October 10th and 11th global reset conspiracy? Don't know anything about it. Sorry. Carson City Mint. Said it was Treasure Auction 24 has so many amazing lots if anyone likes Spanish. Okay. Cat's out of the bag. Sedgwick always has amazing lots. They're great. They are great. Cobbs, I think all that stuff, treasure coins and all that are really quite interesting. Those are unique items too. I mean, no two Cobbs really struck the same and looked the same. So yeah, they always have really nice stuff. Yeah, and it's affordable. You know, the stuff's still affordable. So definitely, if you're interested in shipwreck coins, the primitive coins of North America, or even just, you know, certified coins. They sort of do a little bit of all of it, but they specialize in Cobbs and Reals and shipwreck treasure and things that you just won't see anywhere. And we featured Sedgwick and his staff many times in some of our cool coins videos, which you can check out on our channel. Brick Dictator, let's see. Sort of like a details, right? This said it would show up in News Bits. I don't know if they show up there, but you can go to their website and see their auction pretty easily. PCGS graded MS67 54 Lincolnson is going for over 20,000. HC 67s are going for around 500. Our deep pocket high grade PCGS registry set seekers really driving the price that high? So that's a complicated question, Richard. I think sometimes people don't act in their own best interests. I find it hard to imagine that an NGC MS67 coin is not going to be as good as a PCGS MS67 coin on most days. Just looking at it generic, not looking at the coin itself. Now, coins themselves stand out. They tell their own story. But, you know, the graders who work at one company can work at the other company and go back and forth, and also like to assume that NGC doesn't have world-class graders is crazy. They do. I think what you end up with is a situation where like there's some brand preference in the marketplace, I think ultimately it's not really great for the hobby to have one service sell for coins at such a tremendous premium over another if the coins are virtually the same or very similar. You know, I've seen many cases of coins from both services upgrading over the years, so it's not that like the grades are set in stone. And sometimes it's for good reason. Sometimes, you know, a coin was undergraded the first time it went, like legitimately flat out undergraded. Other times, I think the market changes. Like Mercury Dime is a great example. I think 20 years ago, the way the grading services viewed Mercury Dimes versus the way they view them now is quite different. And part of that is because people's demands, you know, or expectations of that series have changed, you know. So I don't know if like, you know, any of that, the differences make a lot of sense. I will say one thing: there is some willingness, I think, for people to look at it this way: that if the coins were 20K in one holder and 5K in the other, why aren't the 5K coins in the 20K holders? That's, you know, I'm sure a lot of times these coins are attempted to cross, and sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't. I was in, both grading rooms of both major services, seeing coins being sent back and forth for grading, and sometimes they don't cross on one side, sometimes they don't cross on the other side. So it's really just about each company's grading culture, their philosophy. I've heard, I can tell you right now, one service is stricter on certain type of material, I know for a fact, than another, but the other service is stricter on different material than the other. So I just think it's like, you're looking at human beings, grading culture, established set of sort of rules that are in place in the different companies who operate independent of one another. And again, buy the coin, buy the coin, let's see. What's a book that needs to be written? I think we should always be thinking about that question, David. I think there's so much about this hobby that, there's so many topics in this hobby that, could use a refreshment. We look at like a Kennedy $50, Franklin $50 book that, looks at each coin as an individual piece and doesn't like sort of, look at them all like, oh, and gems are rare and superb gem, they're rare and everything. I think every coin deserves respect. I would love to see, books that really treat the coins as the individual items that they are. A few years ago, I tried to pitch an idea to the ANS about doing a book on the designs of like Joel Iskowitz, or probably Joel Iskowitz, I think, actually, and because he has many designs, and like felt like he wanted to be part of it, and we could talk about the things that he had created in his lifetime and while he's alive, and and we could talk about like this stuff from a first-hand perspective, and they're like, they weren't too hot on it because he was still alive. So it's almost like that people want to wait for people to die before they get involved and try to like recapture part of their career, but you lose so much of the story in the process. I think what we need to do is really just look at the hobby and preserve as much of it as we can, because the hobby has become so digital. A lot of the things get lost right away. We experience the hobby in real time, and then a year later you say, hey, I seem to remember something, and then good luck finding it. In the past, at least you had magazines and books and things that you could go back to and say, oh yes, well, Abner Kreisberg in this issue of the Newsmax Scrapbook magazine was offering this coin, and it's not so easy anymore in a digital age. So I think if I was writing a book on coins and the coin industry and the coin market, the first thing I would do is I would try to start archiving things that are happening in real time, who the players are, what the scandals are, what the interesting stories are, and get to know as much as I can. And then at some future point when all that story makes sense and tells a bigger narrative, I would publish something about that. Also, there are other things about the numismatics that aren't really like relevant in the mainstream at this point, but could be made relevant. Numismatics in video games would be a great topic. I think that looking at the way coin-like objects filter out into the pop culture is an interesting topic. Also, I would be very interested in finding out how the mints themselves see the future of coins beyond the sort of the bullion side and the precious metal stuff that they make, because the future of coins is really dictated by the mints, and we don't really have a very deep bench of books about the mints. We look at the mint history, and which is a fascinating side bit. I remember being at the ANA and Ed Moy's there, and he's doing this presentation, and the collectors in the audience can't help themselves. Now, Moy's supposed to be talking about Fort Knox and if there's any gold there, but they can't help themselves. They want to. It's like, so Ed, 140 years ago, the mint director said this, like trying to stump a former mint director by going over the history of the mint as if it really even matters anymore, when what you should be doing is sitting there and trying to find out as much as you can of what Ed Moy knows, because he knows like everything that happened in the mint when he was there. But we ignore all of that because we want to show them how smart we are by telling them what happened 150 years ago at some anecdote that's not even completely relevant. It's probably not even factually 100% accurate. So I just think that we need to like preserve the now, because the now is critical. And every day we don't preserve the now, we lose it. We run, or at least we have the chance of losing it. So that's my soapbox about that. Let's see here. Yeah, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. You got it. Sean Davis, your thoughts on the UK Royal Mint's recent 10-ounce silver release called the Valiant? Have you seen it? No, I haven't seen it, but if you want to send me a link at news@coinweek.com, I'll check it out. And maybe if we have some thoughts on it, I'll try to follow up. History on coin certification, like that. Okay. All right, guys, it's like 1:09 in the morning. I do have to sleep, and I'm going to go to bed right now. So thank you, everybody, again, for tuning in to the Coin Week Midnight Stream. I plan to do this typically every other weekend on Fridays. Share it with your friends if they like collecting coins and you think I've said anything worth hearing a second time. I do have that show coming up at the 24th, 25th, and 26th in Baltimore. So I'll be in Baltimore. Please stop me in the Bourse if you see me. Also on the 7th, I think it's the 17th of October, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. at the 3rd U.S. Mint Symposium. This will be my 3rd time attending. We'll see what's going on. The first time, I think it was more the Mint trying to interact with the industry to see what was going on. I thought the second time was more the Mint telling the industry how their life was going to be. They basically had a great presentation. They did everything very professionally, but it wasn't really like, what's going on, industry? What do you like to see? It was like, okay, industry, this is what we're going to do to you. And maybe this time will be different. We have a Mint director. For the first time, we've actually had a Mint director that was confirmed by Congress in quite a few years. And with that prestige of that position comes a little bit more authority. Obviously, the Mint is a little bit hamstrung by Congress, something I really wish would change. I think Congress should get out of the coin business and just allow the Mint and the Treasury to work on that issue. I think the Mint should be basically left to their own devices to come up with their commemorative coin programs and everything else. The reason why they do all these exotic metals coins like gold and platinum, palladium, all these things where they actually have latitude, is because that's the only place where they can kind of do things, which leaves silver coins and clad coins in the commemorative side completely out of the purview of the Mint being kind of interesting. They'll make the metals now that we found that they'll make the silver metal versions of these high relief gold coins, or they'll do other things like different finishes. But I want to see the Mint be able to do the same thing that the other mints do, which is to come up with an idea, figure out if the idea is going to be marketable, and then create good art and try to put things together and be innovative. And they can't do it if Congress won't let them do it. So this is something that obviously isn't going to be resolved at the Mint conference in October 17th. But I do hope that like some of the other stuff, like here's one. Develop actual wholesale price point that dealers can buy your products and stock them in their brick and mortar stores, so that people don't have to go to your website to buy things and wait months and months for things to be shipped, that you actually have a wholesale dealer network. And that way coin stores in local communities can actually be established and thrive, because collectors know that, hey, the coin store in my town will have the Mint set and the proof set, and I can see them in person before I wanted to buy them. I think that would go a long way to helping put more coins in the hands of more collectors. So I'm going to go there, and I have an open mind. Usually I do about these things. I'll try to come up with some ideas. One thing I don't want to sit there and suffer through is the dealers or the Mint saying that coming up with educational programs for 5-year-olds is going to change the industry or the shape of the hobby. I have no time for that idea. I think that they need to be marketing to people who are my age group now, and they need to be coming up with things that are interesting to us. We've seen other industries that were sluggish turn things around because they understood that critical fact. I'm looking at the comic book industry. I'm looking at the baseball card, sports card, and trading card industry. All those things are much better off than they were 20 years ago because they understood that they had to market to sophisticated clients in Generation X. And the Mint needs to learn this. Everybody who deals in this hobby needs to learn it. So that's my 2 cents on that. And like I said, I'll go there to the thing and see what's going on, and I'll write a report. I'll tell you everything that went down. I think if you look at the Coin Week reporting in the last 2 Mint conferences, I think we were the only publication actually there both times that wrote in-depth, long articles about it. They gave you every detail went down. So I'll do that again, and I'll make sure that you know everything that's going on, so you can be informed. All right, guys. Again, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you around. Take care.